Hello, and welcome back to the next installment of individual messages for specific nodal groups. That is, in this message, the Cancer, Leo, and Virgo North Nodes. You'll find the timestamps in the description box, so feel free to jump straight to whatever reading you came for. I also want to spend a little bit of time here, though, talking about the sign versus the house of your North Node placement. So if you're interested in that conversation, hang out with me for a second longer. Otherwise, like I said, check out the timestamps. There's also links in the description box to playlists for each of the individual nodal groups where you can find every individual message I've ever done or will ever do, as I do plan to this chunk of these three north nodes are the last three in the first lap around. So now everybody has a message that's specific for the Aries North Node transit that we're all living through. And now I'm going to go back to Aries, Taurus, Gemini North Nodes and do another lap and have some more conversation with each of the 12 nodal groups. So those playlists will be very handy as we get more and more individual messages stacked up on there. So, sign versus house of your North Node. So, I'm not talking specifically, like, I haven't labeled anything with, like, this is for 11th house North Nodes or this is for first house North Nodes. Like, I haven't done that at all with this series, nor do I plan to. However, I did want to make a little note here about basically, like, if you want to take the chapters and overlay them with the houses like they normally are, where Aries is associated with the first house all the way through 12th house is associated with Pisces. Like, if you want to do that and use the chapters, basically, like, the way the chapters are, I am talking about the sign, like the energy itself that wants to play itself out. So if you're going to translate that into the house, just know that, like, the house information is giving you more the set and setting of where is this life lesson going to take place in your life. So, like, for example, 12th house is like very connected to the divine, usually happens in solitude or isolation, compared with like the 6th house, where that's your daily routine, includes all the people you work with, like the work that you do on a daily basis, like all of these different areas of your life. That's what the houses are representing. So you will have to take it with a grain of salt, but it could be pretty informative if you had, let's say, like a Libra North Node in the 12th house. That's extremely different than a Libra North Node in the first house or the 7th or the 4th. Or there is a lot of really valuable information that can come from looking into the house where your North Node is. I'd be really curious where your house is, where your North Node house is, and do they match? So, like, mine, for example, is a North Node in Pisces in the 12th house, and the 12th house would be normally associated with Pisces. So that is like a double dose, like a turning up the volume in the intensity of that specific life lesson, where both the house and the North Node are pointing to the same thing. And if your North Node, let's say you had a Pisces North Node in the 6th house, that's like exactly opposite of where you might expect. Another example might be like a Libra North Node, but in the 1st house. That's like the house associated with Aries, usually the 1st house, but you have a Libra North Node there, the sign that's usually opposite to that. So those ones where they are opposite, those, I get really excited when I see those in a natal chart, and I've manifested quite a few client readings where that's the setup that they have. And how I've felt my way into this is that is like next level in terms of the level of authenticity required for you to find your way to your exact unique expression of divine energy. Like, when you have like a Taurus North Node in the 8th house, or like whatever opposition you have, when they're flipped like that, it's like nothing anybody ever gives you for advice feels like it lands 100% true. Like everything is balance. Everything is recognizing that like there is no such thing as all or nothing. Like I can't just be all one thing. I need to be this thing, and I need to recognize when I shouldn't be that thing because I should be this thing. That's like very different from that. Like it's such a like a fine tuning kind of lifetime, I think, where there's like mastery on both ends of the spectrum. Because when you think about it, like if you have your South Node in Taurus, but your South Node is also in the 8th house, then you have mastery in Taurus and you have mastery in 8th house matters. You also have karma in both of those places, like, debt to repay or whatever. But like there's mastery overlapping here, meaning there's technically mastery kind of like in the Scorpio end and the Taurus end, even though you're a Scorpio North Node in the 2nd house. Like in that cross-matched example, like I think it gets to be even more critically important, and maybe in that way the Aries North Node chapter is even more impactful for people in that situation, because it's like the main ingredient to you finding your soul's path is authenticity. Like nobody else has your answers. Like you are going to have to feel inside of yourself moment to moment how to balance your unique energy. There's no guidebook on how to do that. It'll be a felt experience from the inside out. And that's really what the Aries North Node is talking about for all of us. But if you have like a completely swapped energy like that, where like, like I think about Libra risings, for example, because that's basically taking, typically Aries is in the 1st house, and then we have Taurus in the 2nd, Gemini in the 3rd. But when you put Libra on the 1st house, it like takes the entire zodiac and like flips it upside down. And so like you're using energy in a way where other people just, it's going to be really hard for them to give you any kind of advice because you are so unique. So all of that to say, do follow your instincts and check out any of the other chapters that may be applicable. If you want to translate them from sign to house, I think that's totally fair. Just take it with a grain of salt, because the house will be the setting versus the sign is more the lesson or the actual energy that's wanting to play itself out. But I think there could be clues of like, as we're on the scent of our authenticity and our true identity, chances are there's clues in any or all of the chapters that you are drawn to. So do take advantage of those. Again, the links for the playlist for each one are in the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the Cancer North Node. Will be up first, and then Leo and Virgo. So welcome, Cancer North Nodes. I am so excited to get to open up this conversation with you. If you have a Cancer North Node, that automatically means you have a Capricorn South Node. And I want to begin by talking just a little bit in general, like what is a Cancer North Node? What does that mean as far as the South Node being our karma, our past life karma, our past issues, our past mastery, and expertise because of the experiences we've had. And then the North Node being our future, our destiny, our fate, our, I believe, self-chosen path of spiritual evolution in this lifetime. So let's start with, if you're here as a Cancer North Node, or anyone that wants to develop their Cancer energy while healing their Capricorn shadows, anyone can work to balance these two energies by developing their Cancer. And here I'm going to talk a little bit out of Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. And at the very beginning of the Cancer North Node chapter, she has attributes to develop: noticing and validating feelings, empathy, Cancer is a water sign. So water energy in general is very linked to our emotions. So that's why we're, right out of the gate. Like that's basically the point of a water north node. So Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. You're here to kind of like break down the walls of compartmentalization that you have inside of yourself. And we're going to get into where those walls came from so that we can really have compassion for what it is that you're doing here. But the goal is to get those walls to come down so that emotion can come out. And depending on where you're at in that process, as a fellow Water North Node, I can tell you that compartmentalization is like in there. It's really an important piece of who we are as Earth South nodes. And life will be unnecessarily hard until we unlock our emotions and allow them a respectable seat at the table, if not the head of the table, to help us in guiding our lives and making our choices and, choosing our behavior. Our emotions have a lot to contribute to the life path that we're on when you have your North Node in a water sign. So noticing and validating feelings, empathy, nurturing and supporting others, building one's own foundation and security, honest disclosure of feelings and insecurities, like basically being vulnerable even when you feel like you're the one kind of like not with the upper hand, like you're the one that is the weaker of the two in the in the dynamic that you're in. That Capricorn South Node will want to kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing, like just like put on your Stonewall face and get it done, do whatever it takes kind of thing. And Cancer North Node is about honest disclosure of feelings and insecurities. And when we're talking about the North Node and leaning into a particular energy, whatever the North Node is pointing at for you all Cancer, there is so much more than I will ever be able to explain as far as like what's waiting for you on that path. Because to an Earth South Node, disclosing your insecurities and like your vulnerabilities and showing weakness may sound like the worst possible, like counterintuitive idea you could ever come up with. And at the same time, like your emotions will guide you to the life of your dreams. And that's like the best way I can say it as a fellow Water North Node. So building one's own foundation and security, honest disclosure of feelings and insecurities, humility, which I think is kind of common for all of the Water North Nodes, accepting others' foibles and fluctuating moods without judgment, staying centered in one's own feelings. So emotional intelligence is kind of what I would call this, as far as like this is emotional intelligence, being able to recognize that the energy of ourselves is fluctuating, the energy of everybody else is fluctuating, and that energy, the fluctuating energy, has a lot of information that we could be downloading and using to strategize and make different choices. And that's where, again, as an Earth South Node myself, I really make the case for, that Capricorn South Node wants to get shit done. It wants to provide ultimate security and stability and well-being for the people that it cares about. Like I would say like there's no more dependable soul on this planet as far as like giving your word and keeping your word than a Capricorn South Node. Like that is something, that dependability, that perseverance and just grit and persistence, like that does not go away no matter how much you lower your walls and let your emotions come on out. Like best case scenario, I mean, you could dial up your emotions 1,000% and you would just be starting to tip into a balanced place between earth and water energy. Like such is the nature of the South Node. It's over exaggerated. It's so far out of proportion that we had to come with the North Node facing where it was so that we could start pulling ourselves back into balance. So all of that to say, like ultimately, the values of a Capricorn South Node are still what you're going to be living out. Like, even as you let water, your Cancer energy, like, come more into the mix, there's still going to be like this ultimate aiming towards like those Capricorn values of what is your legacy? What are you doing to like create a structure that enables a lot of people to have a better quality of life? Like, what are you contributing? What are you building? What are you taking like brick by brick by brick and day by day by day? You know, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, like that daily effort that you are personally doing so that the world will be a better place. Like, Capricorn South Node, like that's always going to be the posture, basically. Like, I think, no, I think you can like open up into your Cancer South or Cancer North Node for years and still bring that Capricornian wisdom, that earth energy wisdom that knows how to accomplish any goal it might set its sights on. And with that, let's take a look at the tendencies to leave behind as far as like this Capricorn South Node energy. It's not possible to completely divorce yourself from your earth energy, I don't think. If anything, it serves as a really handy like anchor point as you do lean into your water energy and kind of like the fluidity and the vastness and the boundlessness and all of that. It can feel really overwhelming. Like, if I dissolve into all these emotions, I'll never be able to put myself back together again. And again, that's just not true because of that anchor in your earth energy. Like, you're an earth energy being through and through. So letting in your emotions is only going to basically change how you navigate yourself. It's going to change your timing. It's going to change like who do you talk to and who don't you talk to. When do you talk to them and when don't you talk to them? Like, it's going to change your timing through the world, but the who you are and who shows up in those places is ultimately still going to be extremely motivated by the Capricorn South Node values. That being said, there are superpowers in that South Node because there's mastery there. And there's typically some kind of past life karma there as well, because you've spent so much time in that place. And typically there's going to be the good and the bad of any experience. And so some of the ways that that Capricorn South Node being, that Capricorn energy being over exaggerated for you, some of the ways that that can come across as unhelpful or, you know, like counterproductive. You know, Capricorn South Node, like productivity and getting shit done is like kind of paramount. Like, that's the top of the top. Like, we need to make progress. We need to get where we're going. And so when can that go wrong? Because in many, many ways, you can see how that's an incredibly effective superpower. And yet it can come through as needing to control everything and everyone. Kind of like the stakes are like, as far as like how important is it to get shit done and what kind of a price are you willing to pay? Who and what are you willing to sacrifice in order to meet your goal? And sometimes with Capricorn South Node, there can be like, you took it too far in past lives. Like, you stepped on your family. You like, there's this song that I think will probably resonate with you. I don't know, that's my guess. It's called Coin, or no, it's called Cemetery by Coin. And the whole gist of it is that this guy, he didn't have any family, but he's the richest guy in the cemetery. Yeah, it's like that. Like, you chased after earthly success and accomplishment to the detriment of your close personal relationships. And to a certain extent, I mean, I think we're, you know, I believe we're all 12 of the zodiac archetypes, meaning we're all four of the elements. So in order to feel true fulfillment and wholeness, you know, we do need personal relationships. We also need earthly fulfillment. We need to put our hands in the dirt and make something happen, you know? Like, there's both of these. And so I'm not saying earthly accomplishment isn't important. I'm saying when you chase it to the detriment of your relationships, your growth, your all of these other, your authenticity, your personal values. Like when you start sacrificing who you really are and the wholeness of yourself in order to meet the goal, now that is where, okay, so this earth energy, this Capricorn energy is too exaggerated in your mix. And we're here with the Cancer North Node to try to balance some of that out. So yeah, the controlling everything and everyone, the compulsion to take charge without fully understanding the situation. It's like just kind of a knee-jerk response to be the leader in a situation. That's a really good one. I've noticed. I've met several Cancer North Nodes. I think that's absolutely true, to like just kind of have this instinctual leadership capacity, this instinctual entrepreneurship capacity to just kind of like take the lead and start something. Like Capricorn is a cardinal energy, it starts things. But I will say that depending on what house your Capricorn South Node is in, possibly it has to be a very unique kind of situation before you'll step in and take the lead. It may not come naturally through and through in every single situation. It may be like, in my family, I'm okay with that. In my marriage, I'm okay with that. But at work, I really struggle. Like it could be, any kind of mixture. But wherever that happens to play out for you probably matches your house with your South Node. Ignoring the process and being too focused on the goal. I think being too focused on the goal is kind of the motto of the Capricorn South Node, or why Capricorn is on your South Node. Basically, like why you're trying to kind of wiggle loose of that. It's like there's too much focus to the detriment of other important things. Feeling completely responsible for everything, hiding feelings and fears in intimate relationships, doing things to gain respect or admiration from others, taking care of others' feelings and neglecting one's own, doing what is socially acceptable rather than what is totally honest, thinking that things have to be difficult in order to be important. Dude, that last one, thinking that things have to be difficult in order to be important, reminds me to also, if you're called in this direction, if your intuition is calling you in this direction, check out your moon sign and find where I'm talking about that energy is the South Node. Okay, because like I know so many Capricorn moons, and this is one of the things that it's just like a constant. Like Capricorn moons, like they get off. I swear to God, they have like a fetish for difficulty. Like, if you can believe it. And Capricorn South Node too. Like, I think you're like attracted to challenge. You're attracted to like climbing the mountain and standing on top. Like, I mean, picture that. Like, there's not a whole crowd of people up there. And that's because it's fucking hard. And so that's part of the allure in many, many ways to what kind of a Capricorn South Node will find itself drawn to unconsciously before you start kind of opening up and wanting to evolve on purpose. It's like you get attracted to challenge, and kind of the lowest frequency Capricorn South Node, like where you can get stuck in it and just kind of never move forward, is that you have this whole diatribe about how hard life is. And it's like, no, you like it like that. You like it to be hard because then you get to like be on the top of your mountain, and like it's like kind of your identity is that you can do hard things. And I'm saying all of this because I think that's absolutely like one of your best superpowers, and could potentially be your worst kryptonite, is that thinking things have to be difficult in order to be important, or thinking that something has to be difficult in order for like you to know that you added value. Like when we think about Cancer, like basically water versus earth, like Cancer Capricorn especially are kind of what I would call like the parenting axis, like the mother father, like the soft love, tough love kind of thing. Like, and Capricorn being very much the tough love end of the spectrum, Cancer being the soft love, where like, let's say your kid is just little and has a problem. Capricorn South Node wants to kind of like dive right into it and be like, okay, so who are the players? What's the situation? What can we do? What's the plan? Kind of like lay it all out, make a strategy, make a map so that we can like get to where we want to be. Start solving the problem, right? Like it's a very masculine approach. Cancer is going to take the kid on the lap and like hold and rock and make soothing noises and pet the hair. And like, that's soft love. Is like, we don't have to change anything. I can just go ahead and love you. And there's nothing easier in the world. And so if you have a fetish for challenge, Cancer and soft love looks like why would I waste my time? And here's the thing is that when you Cancer North nodes, like when you lean into that soft love, when you lean into the water nurturing of like, I can love you now. I don't need you to be different. I don't need the people at school to be different or like whatever. I don't need any of it to be different. Just come here. Just come here and let me hold on to you because we're okay right here, right now. And like when you can learn how to do that, like it is incredible to me. I've met several Cancer South nodes, and that may be a chapter that you want to check out as well, just to kind of like understand like these people who have too much soft love that they're trying to lean into their tough love side. Like, what is it that they're doing? Like, what is it that is so magical about a Cancer South node? Because what I've personally experienced dealing with them is that they are like Jedi masters when it comes to actually helping me to move forward when I'm in intense emotion. Like that Capricorn South Node approach that says let's just fix it and then you'll feel better. I tend to be really resistant to that. Like you don't even understand the problem. Oh my God, that's in the book. Compulsion to take charge without fully understanding the situation. Yeah, that's my experience when someone wants to jump right into problem solving mode is like you don't even understand. And now they're the enemy and they can't help me and now I'm just by myself in my intense emotion. And the Cancer South nodes that I have met, they have this ability to basically be like take you on their lap, even just verbally, and be like, that's really hard. Oh, that's so big. Wow. Wow. That's really hard. And like, I'm not even saying anything. You know, like, again, soft love, it's the easiest thing in the world. It could not be more simple to just let them be where they are. Like, and especially for you guys with that Earth South Node anchor of like go into where they are and see through their eyes the difficulty that they're facing. And what happens when the Cancer South Node does that to me, when they affirm and they agree that that's really hard, then all of a sudden, like my nervous system, like my defensiveness, my feeling attacked by whatever life is doing to me, it starts to calm down in this understanding. Like this person agreeing with my intense emotion actually causes it to deflate, which you might think that if I indulge that emotion, if I agree that they have every right to be upset about this, like that might spur it on and make it bigger, but actually it's the opposite. It's trying to talk somebody out of their feelings that will make it worse, that will make the extreme emotion even more intense, trying to be like, you're fine, like everything's fine. No, it's not fine. Like if you've ever had that experience, like you're not fully understanding the situation. And what the Cancer South Node can do can just like jump right into the feeling of it and feel how hard it is for the individual. And that's all that ever matters. Like probably it is fine. Probably they are okay. But you're never going to get them to see that by denying their current reality. So understanding the situation, seeing it through the other person's eyes, seeing it through their fluctuating energy, and not needing them to be different so that you can love them. Like here, I feel like we're kind of talking about unconditional love or universal love, where we don't have to fix anything in order to get to the love. So I want to spend a little bit of time also talking about how does the Aries North Node chapter serve you as a Cancer North Node. The first thing is that this Aries North Node is the quarter way point. So this is the 25% way through point of your nodal cycle. It was just a few years ago, 2019 and 2020, when we had the last Cancer North Node transit come through. So it was only 4 or 5 years ago that you had your last nodal return. That happens every 18 and a half years. And at that time of the nodal return 4 or 5 years ago, chances are something major broke through. Something major was a turning point in your journey. I'm thinking of a Cancer North Node who has a kid who's about that age. And so yeah, like there's something that started, especially where you guys are working on a cardinal sign axis. There's something that started 4 or 5 years ago that was a massive turning point in your journey of leaning into your emotions and leaning, kind of like balancing that Capricorn South Node need to take control, releasing control, leaning into your intuition, leaning into letting other people have their emotional states, whatever that may look like. And what I want to say here, as far as like the Aries North Node specifically, it sounds a whole lot like the Cancer North Node. When you read like the attributes to develop, honest disclosure, building one's own foundation, staying centered in one's own feelings, or you could say for Aries North Node, one's own self. So like these two North nodes, like they work together really, really well as far as continuing to add momentum to whatever it was that started 4 or 5 years ago during your nodal return. And what I want to say, if you happen to watch the Capricorn North Node chapter, I spent a good deal of time talking about their nodal cycle because this is their closing square. They're 75% of the way through their nodal cycle. Here in 4 or 5 years, they're coming up on their next nodal return. So I did a lot of explanation of that cycle in there, but here I'll kind of bring out the point that I made as far as the opening square in our nodal return cycle, where you guys are at right now, is Cancer North Nodes with the Aries North Node transit. This opening square is the introduction of consequences to, something happened 4 or 5 years ago, would love to know what that was, so curious. And now, during the Aries North Node, there will be consequences. And hear the neutrality in my voice. When I say consequences, we don't know yet if that's a good or a bad thing, because it'll depend on what have you been up to for the last 4 or 5 years. Have you been, you took that nodal return experience of like your life changed, like you took a sharp left turn and like now you're going this way. Did you keep going? Because if you leaned in and leaned in and leaned in and leaned in to whatever it was that sparked that last time during your nodal return, these consequences are going to take your life and move it into like this magically even better place and dimension of even more access to opportunities to do what it is that you're doing. Aries is kind of the pioneer, the leader of leaders, like the one who is courageous to step forward into the unknown, face your fear, and do what it is that is honest and authentic to you. So this could be a massive explosion in the greatest way possible of opportunities to really become a role model for the world. And when I say role model, I don't mean other people should be just like you. I mean that you have a component, we all do, you have a component of something to share with the world, something that is impactful, that needs to be received and will be best received as you lean into your own emotions, lean into other people's emotions. They will be able to hear you because of the emotional soothing that you're able to do on your own system, on their system. It's at that point of getting them to relax and feel soothed that then the practicality of your Capricorn South Node can really shine. And you have so much wisdom to share, but nobody wants just your practical solution. Like, everybody needs the soothing that you're able to offer, and then through that, the earth energy wisdom that you do bring with you. So that's one scenario of the consequences being introduced, is that you get discovered by the world, however, on whatever scale that is. You get discovered for the beauty and the wisdom and the brilliance of what it is that you're doing with your life. Cool, right? That's amazing. And on the flip side of that, the other version is that, something happened during your nodal return that, maybe presented a brand new way of looking at things or brand new information, some kind of a turning point. And maybe there was even some time where the momentum continued in that direction. But at some point, there was a reverting back to the old ways, to the pre-state before the nodal return, like those patterns, those approaches to life. We reverted back in this scenario, and the opening square of our nodal return process, those consequences will basically be something along the lines of like, the opportunities that you're getting, the manifestations that you're getting, it's not going to feel great. It's going to feel like a little bit of punishment, like a hard test, a hard trial of, I really wish I would have studied for this. I really wish I would have been practicing my emotional intelligence all along, because it turns out what I need in this situation, the tool that I need, is emotional intelligence. And I figured that out 5 years ago, but I didn't do anything with it. And now here's this experience where, fuck me, like, that's exactly what I need. And I'm totally out of my depth. And I'm going to miss out on an opportunity. I'm going to, stumble over an important relationship and damage that relationship, maybe irreparably. Consequences of, where are you on your journey, and what have you been doing with your life? What, that Saturn element of like, what bricks are you laying on a daily basis that are adding up into where you are now? Because this Aries North Node is getting to rendezvous with who you are now. And that version of you is an amalgamation of the daily effort that you've been putting forth. So this opening square, this Aries North Node transit, these 18 months from July of 2023 through January of 2025, at some point during that process, there will be an exact square to your North Node in Cancer and your South Node in Capricorn. It'll happen exactly at the same time, where that square will be exact. And at that point, there will be this height of consequences. So I would love to hear, what degree your Cancer North Node is at. So like, when are we going to have this exact square? I would also love to know, like, what happened 4 or 5 years ago during your nodal return. I would love to hear that. Really anything, any kind of reflections that feel good to you to share, any self-expression that you want to share. My comments are open. I love reading them. Please take a second and like the video, subscribe to my channel if you're into this kind of content. Check out the playlist below with the messages for all of the other nodal groups. And until next time, I do hope that you will take such good care of your beautiful selves, and so will I. Hello, Leo North Nodes, and welcome to the beginning of a conversation about your nodal group and how the Aries North Node transit will be affecting you. And the first thing that I want to point out is that Aries and Leo are both fire signs, along with Sagittarius. So that Aries North Node, at some point during its 18-month transit, it will be exactly trining your Leo North Node. And trining is a good thing. It's a very helpful, supportive aspect where there's energy being shared between the two. Like, basically you can think about it as like the cosmic forces that are pushing us forward in this Aries North Node direction are also extremely helpful for the Leo North Node direction. Like, not quite as strong of a push as far as like what the natal Aries North Nodes are getting right now, but second strongest as far as like the Sag and Leo North Nodes are benefiting the most from this Aries North Node. So, a huge time it could be for you during this cycle. And we did just have your nodal return here like 6 years ago, thereabouts, was when the North Node was in Leo last. And that would have been a time for something to kind of get going in your life as far as these Leo themes that we're going to talk about. And that momentum is only being added to now with this Aries North Node. Also, with that Taurus North Node chapter that we just finished, that was your opening square for your Leo North Node journey, like the first 25% of the way through your current nodal return cycle. So that Taurus North Node chapter would have been also quite significant as far as kind of really clarifying where have you gotten to so far as like coming off the momentum of your last nodal return 6 years ago, thereabouts. And after that kind of reality check that the Taurus North Node would have been, now we have the Aries North Node, which is really going to add some momentum into whatever Leo North Node directions you're headed. So I want to spend some time here talking about what is that Leo North Node. So like we know whatever the Aries North Node is doing as far as wanting us to step into our fire, our identity, our authenticity, our spark of life force energy, like that Aries North Node is very beneficial for the Leo North Node. So what does that even mean? So the attributes to develop when you have a Leo North Node are individuality, willingness to take center stage, following one's heart's desires, strengthening one's willpower, enthusiasm, self-confidence, taking risks, relating to the childlike quality in others, enjoying life and having fun, looking at life as a game, developing an "it's up to me" attitude. So I do have to say, and I've said before, that this North Node in Leo chapter is quite triggering to me when I think about like what it's really saying here, and as it goes in depth into like reading this emotion, which I'm looking at Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. These things are some of the scariest things that I can think about, you know, like the center stage, having all eyes on you, like being in the spotlight, being under that level of scrutiny and that open to potential criticism. Like, no thank you, right? Like I have a Leo moon in my natal chart, and then it was during my Saturn return, I kind of blossomed into my entrepreneurship journey. I'd always known I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I had never known what kind of business I was going to do. And I finally was like kind of Field of Dreams style, like if you build it, they will come. And I had this intuitive knowing that your business is ready for you. And so I quit my job without having a plan and just was like, I'll be open and live off my savings for a year and see what happens. And it was 5 months into that year that somebody called me and here's my business. And that business opened with its grand opening 10 months later. And that is the birth chart that I use for my grocery adventure, is the date of our grand opening. I think it's very, very similar to the fact that it was 10 months of like kind of getting everything together, where like that date in April of 2017 was the conception point of like getting pregnant with the business. And then 10 months later, we had our grand opening where we, did our first day of business. Best day of sales we ever had. And that February 2018 chart is the one that I use for my entrepreneurship journey. And that February 2018 chart has a Leo North Node and a Leo Moon that are within just a few degrees of my natal Leo Moon. So in some ways, I very much identify with the Aquarius South Node, with the Leo North Node, even though natally I'm a Pisces North Node. So I think I'm like an honorary Leo North Node because of that business and because of this specific grocery adventure where like it makes so much sense as we get into the Aquarius South Node and looking at like the kind of humanitarian superpowers that y'all possess. There's a reason why you need to be the one at center stage. There's a reason why you should be the one in the spotlight, everyone looking at you. There's a reason why you should be the one influencing the masses, influencing the world population on a grand scale, whatever grand scale. I mean, it could be your town, your community, your family, like your state, your country, your continent, like the world, influence. There's a reason why you are meant to have influence. And it's because, long story short, it's because your heart is in the right place. Your intentions are pure. Your motives are geared towards what is in the best interest of humanity. Like the basic gist of the Aquarius South Node is that you are very well versed in the super ego, like the ego that is shared by mass consciousness, the soul of humanity, like the we're all in this together thing. Like I can't hurt anybody without also hurting myself kind of knowledge and wisdom that says we are all connected. So that super ego of like what's best for me is best for you is best for them is like there's only one best for us all. And so what is that? And to look at that grander impact, that bigger impact of like what is going on in the world. And because that is the most overdeveloped part of your being with the Aquarius South Node, the flip side of that in Leo is our ego, which it does all the same things, but for you as an individual. So you're not trying to solve the world's problems. You're not trying to figure out like what is best for humanity as a whole. And here, let me not only solve that problem, but have evidence of my solution, have scientific backing, get my credibility here, like write it all up. Like that Aquarius South Node is like overly scientific, like overly analytical, overly biased towards information and facts and those kinds of things, like to your own detriment. And that's why the Leo North Node is so scary when it's telling you to do things like enjoy your life and have fun. You're like, I don't have time for that. There's important work that needs to be done here. Like, I don't have time to goof off and play around. Like, okay, but the thing is that as a Leo North Node, your inner child has the map to what humanitarian purpose your soul is upon in this lifetime. Like, as an Aquarius South Node, there will always be an element of the superego in everything that you do. Like, you can't help yourself but to create win-win-win-win-win-win-win solutions. It makes you happy, and the whole point is to make yourself happy. So there's nothing going wrong there, right? But the thing about those air south nodes, and I would say this is true across the board for Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius south nodes, is like the shadow of air energy is that you don't ever go anywhere. You don't ever do anything. You don't ever apply the massive knowledge that you have. And so the thing about like what's in the best interest of humanity and how do I, do what's best for humanity, there are countless like trillions, quadrillions, bajillions of options as far as like how could you serve humanity. And the air south node wants to like make a spreadsheet or do an analysis about like, how do I figure out which one of these paths of service is going to be like of the greatest impact to all of humanity? Like, let me, do my scientific approach to figure this out. And the path that will yield the greatest impact to all of humanity is the path that is the most fun for you personally. Individuality, attributes to develop. Individuality, what is personally fun for you? And when you have the answer to that question, you will know how to best serve all of humanity. And you don't have to understand the connection between the two. Like if what is most fun for you is underwater basket weaving or whatever, do it. Do it. Become the best. Put your work out there. Put yourself on display. I'm a underwater basket weaver and I love what I do. I have so much passion. It lights me on fire to think about all the different weaves that I do and all these things. And just glow with the passion and the enjoyment of what you're doing. And that glow will bring these people to you who are here to be influenced by you. They're ready to be taught something different than what they know. They're ready to see a bigger perspective. They're ready to factor in more than just their own opinion, but you will connect with them through the glow of following your own passion and lighting yourself up from the inside out. You will attract these people who want to know your secret. And I think there's a really interesting part in the Leo North Node chapter. I don't think it's in this first summary, maybe in the goals section, but it said that Aquarius South nodes really benefit from having basically like a mission statement, like a North Star of like, this is what I'm doing. Like for me personally, that's why grocery was such an attractive option, is because I already knew about food deserts and food waste, where so much of the food that we produce with our water and our other resources, so much of it doesn't even fucking get eaten. And then there's people who don't even have access to food and we're throwing a bunch in the landfill. Like, what is wrong with this picture, right? It's totally Aquarius South Node of like standing back from the all and observing the bigger picture of what is really going on. What are the patterns in society? And I'm looking at these two side-by-side patterns of food waste and hunger. And I'm like, this is fucking stupid. And so now here's this opportunity, here's this path of getting to open my own grocery store and getting to see firsthand from the inside out why food waste is so common in the grocery industry. And through opening my second store, getting to understand the particular challenges that a grocer in a teeny tiny food desert probably community is facing. Like, there's a reason that these food deserts exist, and it's not grocers not wanting to put a store there. It's vendors not wanting to go there. It's like on and on and on, the added cost of doing business in such a small town. There are reasons. They're like this Aquarius South Node kind of mindset of like understanding what's going on, because you can see the bigger picture. You see the inner workings. It's not just one thing. It's a whole series of issues that from the ground up, the structure is not conducive to these people having access to food. And that doesn't sit well with me. And so this is where what lights you up, what gets you going. It frustrates me to think about all the food deserts we already have, and now all the baby boomer grocers who are retiring in these stores instead of transitioning, they're closing. So not only do we already have a bunch of food deserts, but more are being made year after year after year. Like, the groceries are getting consolidated to the city. That's a problem, because like, we don't all live in the city, right? Like, there's a significant chunk of the population that's using the rest of the country, and yet there are so many places where you cannot get groceries. And so this is one example of like my grocery adventure, my grocery business has a Leo North Node. I get very fired up when I talk about food access and food waste. It makes me mad. it gives me that fuel of the fire to be like, I don't like this. I don't like that there are people who have to travel for 30 minutes just to get groceries. That's one way. That was the town where I opened my second store. They were traveling at least 20 minutes one way to get groceries. And if they wanted access to like a bigger grocery store or whatever, that was about 30 minutes away. So before we put our store there, that was the quality of life. Like if you get home from the grocery store and remember like, oh, I forgot the milk, or oh, I forgot the bread, or whatever, like, well, do you want to drive an hour round trip to go get it? No. Okay, well then you're going to do without, or you're going to go ask your neighbor or something because you don't have access to that. So that gets me fired up. And then to think that like, what is the path of most fun for me personally? Like that's where I do want to tell this story just a little bit more in depth, because I think it paints a really cool picture of, you know, I got into the grocery business. I opened my first store. We were open 87 hours a week, and I was the store manager. And I knew already that, you know, I'm a recovering workaholic. Like I have a problem. I have a compulsion where I just work and work and work and work and work, and I have no idea who I am. And I'm starting to get an idea of who I am, but I still can easily get sucked back into that workaholic lifestyle. And so I get into the grocery business, and for the first 2.5 years, I ran my store, and it really, it didn't do anything to me. I fell back into my old patterns, my Virgo South Node patterns of being a micromanager and being way too involved. And when I ultimately woke up, it was thanks to some anger. I was so exhausted, and then things weren't right, and I basically just was like, I don't want this to be my job anymore. And I transitioned store manager role over to the next person who was like, we had been grooming him for that position for 2.5 years. So like, it wasn't a surprise that he was going to take that over, but I like pulled the switch and was like, here, no, it's your job now. You deal with this. And I took a big step back. And so that was 3 years ago. And I, in the last 3 years, as I took a step back and I reconnected with myself, I did a huge deep rest cycle multiple times where I fell off the grid. And in that deep rest came my play, came my passion, came my fun, came my restored energy and focus to even be able to have fun. Because like, when you're obsessing about all the problems that you still need to fix, like, it's pretty hard to have any fun. So in that deep rest cycle, I got back to my fun. And the first project I did was I built 10 training modules of how to open, operate, and optimize a grocery store. They were videos. They were each about an hour long. They each had supporting documents. So like, very creative, and very much in that vein of like, I'm going to, you know, do these 11 hours of training videos, and I'm going to make all this stuff. I'm going to create this training course, because this is going to help more people do better at opening more grocery stores in more underserved communities. Like, this is going to help more people have access to the resources that they need. And that mission, that vision of how my creative efforts were going to tie into that bigger picture is definitely something that makes sense to me, where the Leo North Node really benefits from like having that cause, that like kind of wind in your sails of like, what is this all even for? You're not taking center stage for no reason. You have something very important that is worth taking center stage for. And in my world, that's groceries. That's people having access to food. So that's me. Yours can be whatever it is. And then the other piece of that is that now, in my latest like advancement of my grocery adventure, I'm 6 years in, just over 6 years into that process. And what I'm doing now is a podcast. It's called My Grocery Adventure, and it's a podcast for people who want to make an impact. And I am going to host, I already have hosted 4 episodes. I haven't released any of them yet. I'm trying to get a few more done, and then we'll start releasing them. And to release one every week, and I'm interviewing people who make an impact, people who do work that's really fucking cool, and they are out there having fun with what they're doing and using their creative energy to come up with specific solutions, not to solving the every problem of the whole world, but to doing something that is making this world a better place for humanity. And that may not be all of humanity, but at least one little pocket. And so these people who are appearing as the guests on my podcast, they're examples of what it looks like on a small scale, on a big scale, to make an impact in the world. Like, for example, one lady that I interviewed on this most recent episode, she went to school, I'm going to say like probably the 60s and 70s, if I had to guess. And at the time when she was in high school, she was like a freshman or sophomore, and they didn't offer any girls' sports at her school, in her district. Like, that just wasn't a thing. If you wanted to play sports, you better be a boy. Otherwise, like, sorry, you're out of luck. And this did not sit well with her. She did not think that that is how these things should be, that this should be equal, that there should be girls basketball. Like, she said, like, I lived for basketball. It was my favorite thing. I absolutely loved it. And so what she did was she wrote a letter to the principal of every school in her district and explained through this letter why girls should be allowed to play basketball. And so if you think about that, that is like a beautiful example of like the beauty of the Leo North Node and the beauty of being willing to take center stage and be the one to write the letter and sign your name on the bottom of it. You're responsible. She got in trouble from her principal for reaching out to these other schools without his permission. And she's like, well, by that time, like, they had, there's basketball. And so she got to play basketball her junior and senior year, and then got a basketball scholarship to a community college, and then a basketball scholarship to a 4-year university where she eventually graduated before getting her master's. Like, she did that. She changed the course of not only her life, but she had to also liberate the women at her school so that there would be a whole team of basketball team for her to play on. And she had to liberate the women at the other schools in her district so that there would be other teams for her team to be able to play. So in order for her to get what she wanted, her passion, basketball is her life, like, she just needs to be able to play basketball. There's like easily like 50, 60 women who had their lives specifically bettered, opportunities opening for them because she took the initiative to take center stage and be the face of this thing that, like, we should be able to play basketball. Let me explain to you why. And she apparently made her case well enough, because there you go. Yeah, sure, here's girls basketball. Oh, thanks for asking. Here's some, yeah, sure, why not? So, like, it was like, oh my God, like, look at that. Like, she bettered the lives of all of these different people. And that was just the people who instantly got to play basketball because she wrote the letter that year. Like, I think about the seniors who had gone through their entire school career, and like, this was their last year that they could have ever like even chosen to play, but didn't have the choice. And now, because she wrote that letter, here they have the choice. And some of them chose to play. And all the women who came along behind that. Like, how many more years would it have been before somebody else was that inspired, that passionate about basketball, that they would write a letter asking for us to get to play basketball? How many people chose to go out for the team who never would have written the letter? They took advantage of it once it was there, but they never would have been the fire starter who blazed that new trail. So Leo North Node, like, you have a passion inside of you where, mine is talking. I've like always known that. Like, I want to get paid to talk. I'm a teacher. At the core of my being, that's who I am. I want to spread knowledge. I want to spread awareness. I want to educate and heal ignorance and, take the fear that comes from that ignorance off the planet, because the ignorance no longer exists. So there's nothing to be afraid of. So, like, I want to educate. That's what I want to do. And so here, this journey has brought together grocery, the food industry, with me, a person who has a passion for teaching, and brought me through the path of from the inside out. I am a grocer. I have lived that life, and I am a teacher, and I want to spread that experience. I want to spread that knowledge. I want people to understand what it really is like to run a grocery store. It's not what people think it is. At least that's my experience, judging from our community's reaction to certain things and me coming on and explaining this or that and then being like, wow, I never knew that. I had no idea that it worked that way. And I'm like, yeah, pretty cool, right? So yeah, there's a lot that could be taught about our food industry, our life source, like our nutrients, like what we eat to keep us going. Like there's so much mystery in the food industry that I personally am passionate about talking. I love podcasting. I love interviewing people. I love hearing their life story. And so, yeah, I have a podcast called My Grocery Adventure where I'll be the face and we'll talk about these things that make a difference in the quality of people's life on this planet. So what is it? This is my question for this Aries North Node 18 months and for you in your life overall. My question is, what lights you up? What gets your fire going? What makes you passionate? What's fun for you? You know, even in the early days of my grocery adventure, it was very grueling. It was very tedious and long and so much to learn and hard and grueling and challenging, and working with the public is its own thing, and on and on and on. And I knew instantly, like, I can't run this store. Like, this is not for me. I can't do this job. Like, I don't want to be a store manager. Like, I knew that from day one of even like choosing to enter into the business. And yet I did it for a time because I learned what it was to be that and to, you know, have to live that life and how challenging it really is. And it gave me this perspective of appreciation for other people who do live that day in and day out because they want to. That was the first person that I interviewed. Oh, you could just see these little tits. That was the first person I interviewed, was someone who had been a grocer for I think almost 20 years, 15 years, and his store burnt to the ground. And now he's in the process of rebuilding it. He's basically retirement age already, but he doesn't want to retire yet and leave his community without a grocery store. He wants to use the insurance money he got and raise the rest of the funds and figure out how to put a store there again so that he can sell it almost right away so that his community will have a store. So again, like, what is it that you want to create because it lights you up? It's something that you can do. It's something that you can see, that bigger picture of like, this is what's going on and this is kind of the solution as far as what I can see it is. What is that? What is that subject? What is that perspective? What is that problem? What's the solution? And how can you personally put your hands in the clay? How can you personally get involved and make it different, make it better for you and for everyone else who's in that same situation? So you have a tremendous amount of power, and this Aries North Node chapter is absolutely inducing that power in an even greater way. And what you aim to point it at, I think the Aquarius South Node can't help but have that super ego of like what's best for humanity baked into, I'm getting like scalp tingles, like, yeah, you just can't help but like think about that, like this bigger picture, like humanitarian viewpoint. And so that Leo energy can get a bad rap for being selfish or self-centered or whatever, but like there is such a thing as benevolent leadership, benevolent authority, where you do take authority, you do take the lead, and you lead people in a beautiful direction. So, Leo North Nodes, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. And I will be back as I continue to talk to each of the individual nodal groups. We'll come back and we'll have another conversation specifically with the Leo North Nodes. So if you have any questions or any thoughts, I would love to hear those down below. take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're into this kind of content, and trust your instincts. If there's any other chapters that are calling out to you that feel like maybe they have a clue for you for this Aries North Node transit, do take heed of those intuitive messages. Listen to that fun and indulge yourself even for just a minute or two to check out something that's calling to you. Until next time, I do hope that you will take such good care of yourselves, and so will I. Hello, Virgo North Node. I am so excited to get to open up this conversation with you all. I am personally a Pisces North Node, so that means I have a Virgo South Node. And I think your group is the group that helps me to best understand something that feels personally very important for me to understand in this lifetime, which is there is no one size fits all recipe of like how to do life on this planet, like how to be a human. Like literally the recipe, like the guidance and the healing for a Pisces North Node, as you can imagine, is basically the exact opposite of a Virgo North Node. So like when I look at your guys's instructions and I look at like what you're supposed to be doing, there's part of me that feels like shit. Like, why didn't I come as a Virgo North Node? Like, that's what I want to do. That's like a huge piece of who I am, and I could just get lost like doing those things that Virgo North Nodes are supposed to do. But that's the whole point, is like it comes so naturally to me that me doing those things is no longer helpful to my soul. And so like there's like a perfect example is like routine versus going with the flow. Virgo is routine and Pisces is flow. And neither is right or wrong, good or bad. It's just like, how did each of us individually intend to navigate in this world? And with a Virgo North Node, you are specifically trying to lean into routine and like that structure where you have kind of a set list of things that you do every day. Or on certain days or whatever. And with Pisces, like very much trying to kind of undo the overly dependent posture on routine, where like routine is everything. And for a Pisces North Node, it's like, no, like stop it with the routine and just go with the flow. But for you guys, going with the flow some more is counterproductive, while like for Pisces North Node, more routine is counterproductive. So it's like there is no possible way that any one human being can say like this is how to do life, because as a Virgo North Node, there are going to be elements of what works for you that would not work for me, for example, like with that opposite nodal position. Like it would be me going further into like the wrong direction for me to follow you guys's like mindset and intention and direction. Like if I followed you, I would be going in the wrong direction, and vice versa. So your group, like studying as a Pisces North Node, studying Virgo North Node, I've really gotten that like down into my bones. And that, I think if you listen to my channel and my content on owning authenticity, I try really hard to like frame everything that I say as this is my opinion, and you should listen to your own instincts, and you should follow like whatever feels right to you and like whatever is right for your energy. And even this series as a whole is me accepting down into my bones that like there's actually 12 different ways, and truly there's infinite different ways because every single one of us is unique. But like even just philosophically, we can chunk it down into these 12 different nodal groups and say if the North Node is pointed in each of these 12 different directions, like here's 12 completely different ways, sometimes exactly opposite ways that life is supposed to go for you. And so supposed to go for you. Like I've said, it's like that backbone of your karma. So there's a like a directionality to the leaning of like leaning away from the south node and kind of like healing and making amends on the south node end while opening up to the unknown of the north node end. And so I love I love saying this because I want to really reiterate that, like, there is no right way to do life. And I think possibly for Virgo North Node specifically, that might be really comforting, I hope. That, like, the whole point of a Virgo North Node, the attributes to develop, number one, is participation. Like, the main dynamic that a Virgo North Node is trying to heal, this would kind of go along for a sixth house North Node as well. The main dynamic is when something hard happens in your life, and hard is relative, right, to the individual and like what your capacity is. So, like, when something outside your capacity happens, what do you do? How do you respond? And if you're going in the Pisces South Node direction, you withdraw from the situation and kind of like hide or go into escapist mode. Let other people rescue you or hope that somebody else will come and rescue you. Versus on the Virgo North Node end, you participate. You learn, you ask questions, you study, you find teachers, you get better at whatever it is that is outside your capacity. And by doing that, your capacity grows. And then you can face that hard thing. And maybe at that point, you're ready for like, what else is outside your capacity, you know? And then you study a little bit more how to be in the earth realm and how to do this particular thing. So, you know, with Virgo North Node, participation is key. And it's very important to remember there is no such thing as a perfect way to participate. It doesn't exist. And even in the recipe books that are out there, as far as like the entire genre of self-help and like how to be a good person in the world, like anybody who's ever spoken on that topic, they will be coming from their own experiences. And you all are meant to participate in a way where we really haven't even seen this kind of participation before. Like, it transcends what you would even be able to learn from another person. And so I think the do you withdraw or do you participate, like, that's a fear. Like, do you let the fear kind of get the best of you and you withdraw, or are you able to muster some self-confidence and face the fear and get the support you need to face the fear, and in facing the fear you get the confidence that then expands your capacity. So Virgo North Node, like, basically there's not really a recipe out there to tell you how to participate. And this is where, you know, one of the things that comes from participating in the earth realm, which is kind of the opposite of where you guys are coming from, is confidence and self-trust. Like, confidence and self-trust come from successful experiences of participation. And so, especially early on, like, the whole point is that you don't have a track record of participation, or at least a very small one or a very segmented one. Like, for example, Pisces South Node, they say like confinement, like that's where you were, was somewhere confined. And you can think about like nuns are a good example, where like they all live together and they're all doing their nun thing and they have a very strict code that they live by that was not theirs necessarily. I mean, they signed up for it in that version. They gave their life to this other thing and they lived according to whatever that thing was. So their routine, their daily routine, was like somebody else saying like, okay, we all get up at 5 a.m. and we do an hour of this, and then we do this, and then we do this, and then we, like, somebody else was like driving the bus. Like, you were just kind of confined on the bus somewhere, like not really having to make decisions in the world. That's one scenario where it was voluntary. You voluntarily went into this confined space. You had reasons, right? Like, I think that's one of the things that is really underestimated still in Western civilization and culture is the power of those kinds of spaces where you can go within yourself through meditation, prayer, whatever, and connect and unify with this bigger consciousness, this higher power, this God consciousness. Like, it's possible to, through human form, merge with higher consciousness. And there's a reason that some people have opted that way in the past. That was their top value, was merging with that consciousness. With a Virgo North Node, you've outgrown what you're capable of in a confined setting, basically. And I wanted to mention, the other way that we get confined is that we broke the law and they took us out of civilization and put us into a confined space where we were expected to live because we broke laws that govern human participation. We broke society's rules, and society punished the Pisces South Node by putting them into confinement. And then same thing, like the prison decides that you get up at this time and you eat at this time and you go outside at this time and yada, yada, yada. So no matter how it happened, there was a sense of confinement, a sense of you were not responsible for putting food on the table in front of you. You were not responsible for clothing yourself. You were not responsible for paying bills. You weren't responsible. You lived outside of human responsibility. And no matter how it came about, it was for whatever it was for. And now coming back into this life with Pisces on the South Node, you've outgrown what you're capable of in that confined space. You need to get back out into the world to really be able to stretch your wings. And I would go so far as to say, stretch the wings of your imagination. There is an awesome quote by Muhammad Ali, who has a Virgo North Node. He once said, "The man who has no imagination has no wings." And then the author of this article goes on, "The imagination and dreams of the famous people below made their hardworking Virgo North Node take wings and fly." So it's the imagination and the dreams that you all possess, that connection, that intuition, that sense of a higher power, of a higher order of things. It's that knowingness of the connectedness of the all that is really, I think, what is so beautiful when you can find a way to participate. Like, for example, another Virgo North Node is Bernie Sanders. Regardless of what you think about politics, like, you can see his heart and soul in everything that he does. And it's really interesting because he's not a particularly happy individual, but he's a very intent individual as far as, like, he's old. I think we could all agree most people don't work to his age, and yet there's no end in sight necessarily to his activism because it is fueled by a love of humanity, like wanting a better quality of life for the people of our country, that he is standing on his platform and continuing to use his voice, continuing to organize, continuing to participate, to continue to influence as best he can with whatever life force he's got left. He's a beautiful example of, taking a mission, a personal connection to that connectivity between the all, and then channeling that into participation within the system, because we can't influence something from the outside. It's much harder. Like, the most influence is going to come from the inside out. Like, the system will have to evolve itself. We don't make the system evolve. So in order to do that, you kind of got to get in and start pulling levers inside the system to get it to turn and go in a different direction. And he's a great example of, he's got some really strong ideas and he's participating with them. He's putting himself out there. He's like putting his money where his mouth is, kind of thing. And big fan of his activism and his participation, again, regardless of what you think about politics. So let's go through a few characteristics of North Node in Virgo as far as attributes to develop. This is kind of the whole list. Number 1, participation. Number 2 is bringing order to chaos. bringing order to chaos. And then we have creating routines, focusing on the here and now, so like being physically present in the moment, acting on feelings of compassion. The Virgo North Nodes I've met, it's like undeniable the ocean of compassion that you all possess. And again, it's like, who else do we want leading our structures, leading our groups, leading our country? Like, who else would we want besides someone with their heart connected to God and their body acting on behalf of that? Like, I drew this card, which is really interesting for Virgo North Node, which is the Messiah. Because in the light attribute, it says serving humanity with humility. I'm pretty sure humility is on the Pisces North Node list because that's what we're developing. But you guys tend to have humility like in spades. It's like one of your superpowers. Is like you realize that you are one of the all. You know, it's like yes, I'm a drop in the ocean, but I'm the ocean in a drop, and so are you. And like, there's like this recognition that, you know, I'm God and so are you. Like, you're really powerful, I'm really powerful. Like, we're all kind of tapped into that. So like, there's never really this, when you participate, there's never really this sense of like, you think you're better than anybody, or you put yourself in some kind of superior position. If anything, you put yourself in the inferior position. It's incredibly disarming to people, and they trust you and they open up to you and they give over their power to you. And as we go on in this conversation, the next lap around, I'm going to take an example from each group, and maybe we even do that more than once, and do a deep dive and look at what they did with their life experience. And in this first example, the Virgo North Node that I've chosen, they accused him of having a messianic, however you say that, basically a messiah complex, but in shadow, in the shadow attribute of exaggerated belief that you are the only means through which a cause can succeed. Like, you kind of start embodying God in a way that you are the source for other people's well-being. And no, like, you have your connection to God and they have their connection to God. And if anything, your service can help them find their own connection to their own God. But where you do go off the rails with a Virgo North Node is to believe that you have like a direct line to God and other people need to get in line and you'll like make their phone calls for them, kind of thing. Like, you have all the answers. And that is essentially where, yeah, this first example, he was not a healthy Virgo North Node. He was very much stuck in that Pisces South Node, kind of stunted in it, I would say, and very, very unhealthy expression of what this could look like. And I don't want to scare anybody, but I do think it paints a good picture as far as then, like, on the Pisces South Node, tendencies to leave behind. When you watch, there's like a whole 2-season, multiple episode documentary about this person and what he did. So like, it also makes for a really great teaching example. Lots of content there. But when you look at what he did and the organization that he ended up building, you can see how he was reaching for his Virgo North Node. And he was like aimed in the right direction, but these Pisces South Node shadow patterns, you can also see where they definitely like kind of had their way with him. The tendencies to leave behind as a Pisces South Node is being a victim or having victim consciousness, confusion and disorientation, avoidance of planning, escapism or addictive tendencies, and that could be drugs, alcohol, sex, media, I mean, all kinds of ways that we disconnect from the here and now. Continuing on with the Pisces South Node tendencies to leave behind, we have escapism, oversensitivity, self-doubt, feelings of inadequacy, withdrawal, vagueness, and inaction and giving up. And, you know, there's some healing affirmations that I want to put in here as well, as far as healing affirmations specific to Virgo North Node. And I am reading out of Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. The first one, and you might try pausing the video and saying these out loud and see how it feels to like say these affirmations. Number one, I'm the only person who can put this situation in order, so I might as well do it. Number two, this is not a victim lifetime. Number three, when I withdraw, I lose. When I participate in creating positive results, I win. Number four, when I focus and have a plan, the whole universe opens the pathway to success. And that is another one where, again, I have to come back to like, there is no one size fits all, because when I start planning as a Virgo South Node, that's when I get in trouble. Like, I can't have a plan. I need to let go of the like fear-based knee-jerk reaction of making a plan. Like, I have to let go of that in this lifetime. And you guys get to do the opposite. Like, you get to focus and have a plan. And then the whole universe like starts dropping in the resources and the people and the mentors and the everything that you need to be successful, like on your plan, will just kind of form under your feet. And for me, it's the exact opposite. Like, the more I let go of my plan, the more like my personal plan, the more the universe will put stones under my feet that are fun for me to take a step forward and like stand on that stone. But I have no freaking clue where we're going. I have no idea. And you guys are encouraged to like do the earth energy. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So like, it's a very analytical planning it out and looking at the details. Like, I have a technique that I like to use when I'm starting a project. When you're first entering into something, a big brainstorming area is super fun. So like the big post-it notes, sticky notes that you can put on the wall, and some different colored Sharpies, and maybe over here these are like these kinds of ideas and this is this kinds of ideas, and then you just brain dump every little piece of it, and it doesn't have to make sense. It can be total chaos, and then you begin the part of putting the chaos into order. You start looking at like, okay, so what all do I have on this little part? Actually, I'm going to move this one over here because I think it fits better over there. And then when I look at this list, I want to talk about these things first, because that'll set a good foundation for this. So once you have the brain dump on the wall, then you can start seeing it, and then you can start putting it into some kind of order of like, what's going to help this knowledge help the most number of people? You know, what's going to help this spread as effectively and as efficiently as possible? How can I put this into order so that it's effective? Because that effectiveness means it's going to help people. Again, we have the light side of the Messiah is serving humanity with humility. So you're here to be of service in a practical way, in some kind of, you are helping to elevate the quality of life for other people in a very practical way. Like on a daily basis, they are better off because you are doing what you're doing. And that's an incredibly important role to play. And there is no right way to do it. And so I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the Aries North Node chapter and the transit that we are in from July of 2023 through January of 2025, and how this Aries North Node, Libra South Node could potentially help you further your Virgo North Node soul mission, or how it could help you develop your Virgo energy and heal your Pisces shadows. So the first thing that I think it can help with is it's going to be a boost of courage. It's that Aries North Node, that fire North Node, is going to give us some extra soul sparks, some extra pushes of energy of things that you get really fired up about and that your Pisces South Node cares deeply about. You have such compassion for the suffering of other people. And so because of that, these sparks that start flying with the Aries North Node, they're lighting fires where you're putting your compassion into action in an even more pronounced way. So that Virgo North Node, I mean, you can be in the world and do literally anything, and this Aries North Node chapter is really helping to clarify, like, specifically for you, what way did you come forward to participate? Like, what really lights your soul on fire? That's a great question to ask yourself, kind of always. Like, where does your soul become the most compassionate? And find that deepest well of compassion and then figure out, how do I mobilize this? How do I share it with other people? How do I create a space or create a training or create a work environment or create a doctor's office or create, like, whatever it is? How do I create something in the physical that will let more and more people have this compassion wash over them and through them, and they as a result will feel better? They will feel held in the arms of the divine nurturer that loves us all. How can I personally build something that will let more and more and more people know that for themselves? So there is a very noble mission driving a Virgo North Node and re-entering into society and participating into society using the courage of that Aries North Node to confront any of the fears that are present as far as, like, what might keep you from participating. So, like, I think social anxiety is kind of common with Virgo North Nodes just because you haven't really participated in society in a while. So having to just, like, go out there and, like, meet people and, like, rub elbows with like, whoever, it's like, I haven't done that. I don't know what to do. And social anxiety. So I think, that's where the Libra South Node might be super helpful as well, regarding kind of seeing through the illusions of what our social conditioning even is. Again, circling back to, there is no right way to participate. There's the most common way to participate, but does that mean it's the right way? Abso-fucking-lutely not. So, and you guys are, like, on the leading edge of showing us how to participate with each other in a loving way, in a way where we're unifying people, not driving them apart, where we're building more love between each other. Not the opposite. Like, you guys have an example to set once you get involved that is incredibly beautiful and helpful to humanity. So if anything, I think the little bit of courage coming off the Aries North Node, getting to kind of, like, light your fire a little bit more to help clarify, what is really something of intention that really matters to you, that, like, gets you fired up. That Libra South Node of, like, letting go of any misconceptions or misunderstandings that, like, you're doing it wrong or, like, there is a right or wrong way. I think the only thing I will say as far as, like, there is no right or wrong way to participate, I stand by that wholeheartedly. I mean it 100%. But at the same time, we live in a society that has rules and laws that govern our behavior, that tell us, if you do this, this will be the consequence when we catch you. So that exists. And I would say that there is no right or wrong way to participate. You are more than welcome to do whatever you want. You have freedom. You have free will. You get to make your choices. That's the beautiful thing about participation. But I think, I would love for you guys to learn along with me from this role model that I'm going to share with you next time, named Keith Raniere, that it's not that there's a right or wrong way to participate, but you have to understand that, like, there are limits to what society will accept from your participation, which is something very different, right? Like when you're on a desert island all by yourself, you can do whatever the fuck you want because there is no law. Like you're there by yourself. There's no one to catch you. There's no one to tell you you're doing it wrong. But when you participate in a society where there's other people, while you do get to do whatever you want, it is not limitless. There are laws, there are consequences, there are limits. So there are lots of good examples as far as, you know, that inherent limitlessness of the Pisces South Node, where you do merge with the all, you dissipate into non-physical, basically. Stephen Hawking is another person that has a Virgo North Node, and he did something very different with his like understanding the limitlessness, wanting to help paint a picture of like what exists beyond what we can see and hear and smell and taste and touch, and like wanting to kind of like pull back the veil and show the world something bigger and more mysterious than anything that we had ever understood before. And so he's a very different example of like he participated, and yet another very interesting example of like he didn't go to jail, but I think you can agree that like he absolutely suffered from confinement. Like in his physical condition, in his wheelchair, in his deteriorating physical vessel, he experienced a great deal of confinement, and yet, like even with that oppositional force, he still participated. He still was a thought leader, was a contributor, pretty much until he died. So like there's all kinds of ways where these Virgo North Node examples are showing us, they kind of like outline like how do humans participate with each other. Like there's some examples where, yeah, it's beautiful and they did all good and there's really no bad to speak of. They painted this beautiful picture of like what's possible in humanity. Great, opened our eyes to that. And then there's other ones like Keith Raniere who opened our eyes to, right, like humans can do anything. Humans can participate in any way that they want. That's true. That's true. And he showed us the dark side of that. And that's where, like, you know, I'll talk more about it next time when I get into his chart and his energy specifically. But The Vow on HBO is the show where it's like 2 full seasons of getting to see him and the history of the organization that he built for 20 years and how he is now serving a 120-year prison sentence as a 65-year-old man. So, I mean, he's spending the rest of his life in prison for what he did. And as he should, you know, like, you can do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong way to participate, but there is a limit to what society will accept from the individual. And that's always changing, right? And that's where I think Virgo North Nodes also will, again, kind of outline like what is socially acceptable. There's a very interesting line from his lawyer at the end of season 2 after the sentencing where he's saying, you know, this created a very interesting sociological debate about like what is allowed, you know, like these people choosing to live this lifestyle. He's like, this not only brought a really interesting debate to the light of day for society to get to have, and I think, this is the lawyer talking, I think we would have won that debate. We had won that debate clear up until you introduce sex with people who are underage, CP, you know, like, no. Society says no. You are not allowed to do that. And he would have walked free. I just can almost guarantee it, if not for like those 2 things, that one person. Out of everything that he did, everybody that he hurt, there was like almost, by the time like you really got to the trial of it, like there was almost nothing enforceable. Like he had done nothing wrong. You know, like, yes, he caused a shit ton of harm, but the law didn't have any boundaries there, didn't have any jurisdiction to protect the victims of the harm that he caused. He chose to participate in a way that technically society was not built to protect us from people like him. Is that not good information to have? I think so. And number two, he showed us that there is absolutely a limit where you do not get to just live your lifestyle. And again, as society expands and evolves, that continues to expand and evolve as well. So I think his trial, I mean, his whole life, but specifically the trial, where everybody got to kind of get everything laid on the table and see how he was choosing to participate, the trial did a lot for furthering the conversation of how are humans relating to each other on this planet. Like how do we show up? How is it right to show up? How are we allowed to show up? Like he pushed the bounds on everything and eventually pushed the boundaries into a place where nope, that's not going to stand. And so we all got to see, like, when you really look back, like stand back and look at his trial, like what he proved is that you are allowed to have whatever lifestyle you want for the most part. I mean, when you look at the things that he was doing, the ways he was having relationships, like he was in multiple committed relationships, some of them for decades, multiple all at the same time, like all kinds of different relationships with all these women, all of them monogamous to him always with all his different relationships and always adding new ones. And like none of that was going to get him in trouble. The only part that got him in trouble was the underage person that eventually got in the mix. And it was that crime that was the most part of why he ended up going away. And so, like, Virgo North Node is one of the most fascinating chapters for me to work with. And I apologize, it was so specific already on these examples. But I think it's one of the most important groups as far as like the boundaries of what it means to be human on this planet and the ways that your imagination and your dreams, your desires, your intuitive energy moving through you, the way that it does, it leads you into these nooks and crannies of civilization that we have not yet explored. The way you're inspired to participate, it adds to the collective understanding of what humanity even is. So I think that, the Virgo North Nodes through this Aries North Node chapter, like you getting the courage to participate even more, I think the more you participate, the faster humanity will evolve. Like the more you get involved, like you light up these places where, yeah, we haven't had that conversation before. Like for example, like he lit up that basically we have no laws against any kind of manipulation, coercive control, like the cult tactics, the human control tactics that these groups employ, they're not illegal. Like what that proves is that in society right now, you can take control of another human being. And as long as they agree to it, as long as you can get inside their psyche and get them to agree to it, you're not breaking the law. They chose it. Like our human minds, our human capacity to participate with each other has evolved to a place that is so far beyond where our laws and our society and our like civil understanding of how our society works, like our human capacity has evolved so far beyond that, like cases like Keith Raniere, they paint the picture that like our systems and our structures and our infrastructure for our civilization like needs to catch up. It needs to evolve and develop. And if anything, you guys are kind of part of that, like part of illuminating the evolution that needs to take place and helping to bring it about through your participation. Virgo North Node, that was a heavy one. If you've made it to this point, dude, kudos on you. I have a lot of respect for the Virgo North Node group as a whole and a lot of appreciation for these loopholes and gaps that you all illuminate by coming to human participation completely intuitively. You don't you don't have a whole lot of like outside influence, so you just do what comes naturally to you. And then we get to realize as a society, like, oh my gosh, like either in the best or the worst way, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize humans were capable of that. Like either that's really cool, I want to reach for that too, or oh my god, like wow, like we need to update our laws, we need to, rethink how we empower, people to be around our kids. Like we need to rethink how we be in this world. And I think Virgo North nodes are helping to illuminate the human condition in a way that it's like critically important for the evolution of our species at this time. So if you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Take a second to subscribe to the channel. I'll be coming back around, like I said, with more specific conversations for the Virgo North Node group. And leave me a comment down below. What was this like for you? How has your Virgo North Node journey been so far? How has the Aries North Node chapter been treating you so far? I would love to hear from you down below. And until next time, I do hope that you will take such good care of your beautiful selves and participate in whatever way comes naturally to you. And so will I.